Hello and welcome to this video recording on the differences between classical conditioning and operant conditioning, which is a part of learning. And this topic is a part of larger chapter on consumer behavior. Let's get started. This is just a reminder of the factors influencing consumer behavior and wanted to point that learning is a part of a psychological category of the factors that influence consumer behavior. It's a very important factor, and I would like to put a little bit more emphasis on this. However, in this video, I will introduce you to the two key concepts. Learning drives consumer behavior. Why are we focusing on learning? Because human behavior is largely learned. What is learning? Learning is the process during which we acquire new or modifying existing knowledge, behaviors, skills, values, or preferences. Learning can be kind of like, there can be two types to learning. Number one, intentional learning with effort. And number two, incidental learning, where we learn accidentally or without much effort. The term learning generally covers all ranges of learning, from simple reflexive responses to more abstract concepts or complex problem-solving capabilities. So in marketing, in consumer behavior, in general in learning literature, you will come across two key terms, classical conditioning and operant conditioning. They are two important concepts central to behavioral psychology, in fact. While both result in learning, the processes during which we learn, not just we people, animals, and everyone else, the processes are quite different. To understand how each of these behavior modification techniques can be used, it is essential to understand how classical and operant conditioning differ from one another. So if you look here at the definition, classical conditioning is learning without effort, and operant conditioning is learning with effort. You may wonder at this point, just like me, why would someone need to introduce such complicated sounding phrases when we could just simply say learning with effort, learning without effort. Nonetheless, let's look a little bit deeper into this. So in the picture, classical conditioning, you can see associate an involuntary response and a stimulus. So we learn without effort. We can hear a whistle and we are ready perhaps for food. In operant conditioning, we learn with effort, associates a voluntary behavior and the consequence. So when, say, a mouse or a rat tries to touch that cheese on a mouse trap, then there might be consequences. Both classical conditioning and operant conditioning are processes that lead to learning. Classical conditioning pairs two stimuli, while operant conditioning pairs behavior and response. In other words, it pairs actions with consequences. Also, classical conditioning always works with involuntary responses, while operant conditioning works with voluntary behaviors. We have chosen to behave that way. So classical conditioning is learning without effort, and operant conditioning is learning with effort. In classical conditioning, consumers respond to a stimulus in a particular unconscious way. We don't really think about it consciously. For example, by salivating when they see a picture of delicious food. In operant conditioning, advertisers try to change consumers' behavior by using rewards or punishment. And not just advertisers, but a lot of others. For example, if you think about it, if you get a parking ticket from the council for parking in the wrong place with a penalty, so is it classical conditioning learning without effort, or operant conditioning learning with effort? Perhaps it's more learning with effort, where there is an association between a voluntary behavior and a consequence. Now, let me show you an example in marketing. Give you an example of operant conditioning, which is learning with effort used in marketing. Specific case is of Coca-Cola. So you can see an example on the top left side of the corner where you can see kind of like 4 different situations. So the first one, the top left, before conditioning. Now, when people see Santa, think of the Christmas, it results in happy emotions like happiness, excitement, family. Okay, so this is unconditioned stimulus, Santa, and unconditioned response. We feel happy. Now, if you move forward clockwise to the right side, before conditioning, if people see Coca-Cola, which is neutral stimulus, then they really don't have any emotions, none emotions, indifferent, no conditional response if we just see Coca-Cola. Now, if you go to the bottom left, sorry, not quite clockwise, so you can see that during conditioning, what happens? Christmas is being paired with Coca-Cola. So you can see that Santa holding Coca-Cola. So what happens? People still have that those positive emotions such as excitement, happiness, family, which is unconditioned response. And what happens after such conditioning is that when people see Coca-Cola on its own, it becomes more conditioned stimulus and people feel the same emotions, excitement, happiness, and family, because now it became conditioned response. We learned with effort. So thinking through this example and thinking of many other examples in marketing, you will probably see how this might be the case. You can think of the Red Bull and where their advertising very often associated with giving you those wings and strengths and power. And the idea is that when you see Red Bull, you think kind of like without like any sort of like sports activities and so forth. You see Red Bull on its own, you also kind of start to feel those emotions. It's quite similar to a simple example of like dog and chicken. So before conditioning, for example, a dog would have this unconditioned stimulus, right? Basically the chicken would be unconditioned stimulus and dog would salivate. So they will have salivation, unconditioned response. And if they were just to kind of like someone would ring like a bell, neutral stimulus, no salivation, no conditioned response. However, when say owners of the dog start pairing together like that bell together with the chicken with food ready, dog starts salivating. So then what happens later on? You can use just that bell and dog will salivate because they will know that the chicken is ready. So that's how we use operant conditioning, or in general, how we in marketing condition people, if you like. There can be plenty of other examples of operant conditioning, learning with effort. For example, buy one shirt, get another one free. Or buy one shirt, get another shirt at 50% discount. Or buy 2 shirts, get a further 75% discount, and so forth. So it's learning with a little bit of effort. So in summary, there are 2 classical terms that drive consumer behavior: classical conditioning and operant conditioning. Classical conditioning is when we learn without effort, and operant conditioning when we learn with effort. I hope you found it useful and it gives clarity. Thank you very much for watching. If you like the content, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.